Welcome, everybody, to Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel, Inc. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with road warrior extraordinaire, Howard Teibel. How are you?
I'm trying to figure out how you were going to... That's good, Pete. I'm trying to figure out how you were going to introduce the idea that I'm calling from my cell phone in an automobile that's air-conditioned in 98 degrees temperature.
You've painted a fantastic picture for it. This is the life of a road warrior podcaster.
That's right, and I'm parked in front of a really good coffee place, so that's my next stop after we're done.
Excellent. We should be tracking you on a Google map somewhere, so people can actually follow in your footsteps. I want you to be in front of the next Street View car because we need you waving. That'll be be our next thing. You know what we're talking about today? We're talking about we're getting ready for EACUBO coming up October 6th, and you are, as usual, a fine participant and presenter in this year's EACUBO, October 6th through, what did we say, 6th through 8th?
6th through 8th, I think. It's in that time frame. I'm looking right now.
In Baltimore? Yeah, 6th through 9th. 6th through 9th in Baltimore. And very excited to be a part of that again. So we thought we would share for a few minutes, as we are wont to do, to talk a little bit about what you are doing this year. You're presenting again at Teibel Inc. is as usual going to be well represented. Tell us a little bit about this the presentation that you're going to be delivering. It's an old favorite, yeah. Well,
actually, that's exactly right. They actually framed it, at least I'm not sure if it's going to go in materials like this, but this backed by popular demand there. So this was a presentation that we gave, we meaning it was Maureen Murphy and Mike from Emerson and Mike Lockhead from Holy Cross, around how to step back and look at roles and responsibilities in your division and department and think about how you can structure your area so it can be most effective and efficient. And they went through a process that we had done with them in similar, but in some ways different ways, because they have different objectives and there are different elements. People at different stages in their career, and ultimately the presentation was very well received. And they said, you know what, we should offer this again. So that the nature of this is about organizational structure and how to be more relevant, or how to be increasingly relevant to the strategic plan.
Well, and that's what I'm interested in, your sense of how this topic is evolving, right? There's this sense that, you've given the topic before, and you've given this presentation before. It's kind of it's in your back pocket, but these issues are fluid. What is your sense of how finance organizations have adopted this sense and willingness and courage to change?
Part of it is these leaders are getting old.
I
was hoping they were smiling at that. Actually, the people I'm working
present
with are
company
not
excluded, I'm sure.
No, we're all you too. No. There is an interesting element of this that has to do with succession, and this is not going to be a surprise to anybody, but in the next 5 years, there's going to be a significant turnover in leadership in many at the VP levels, and let's talk specifically about the CFO level. Many of them have worked at these institutions for a very long time, and they're looking to either retire out, maybe go into consulting, and as a result of this, what's going to happen here is that these leaders are now looking at their organization saying, how do I, before I even go there, whether it's 3 years or 5 years from now, or even sort of 1 or 2 years, how do I position our division so that when I do leave, we're going to be in a better position? And some of it has to do with figuring out who's at bat, who's up next to take over my role. And this is something that higher ed has been challenged with, and that everyone's had their head down so much over the last, since 2008, the focus on succession. Which of my existing AVPs can I elevate them into my role? Do I have the right individuals in this role? And I think couple that with the increasing demand and public pressure that's happening on the financial side of the house, these leaders are now recognizing they have a strategic role. And I think the presidents of these schools are going, you know what, we got to find a way to weave the financial side in. So it's like this perfect storm that's coming together. And I think the leaders who are taking this seriously are saying we got to find a way to have our work be recognized as relevant to the institution's needs.
Fascinating. So we're talking in many respects about leadership legacy in times of really extraordinary transition.
And absolutely. And I would say if we took 10 different CFOs, each would have a different story about where they are in the continuum. For some, it's not front and center. Some of them are, that's not even on the radar because they're not planning on leaving anytime soon. But that's it's being a bit facetious. But in the ones I work with over the years, that is coming, and that is a factor. But I'd say that obviously the bigger factor is around relevancy. And the most recent, powerful language that I have heard used in a project they're working on is an institution head of administration looking at this team that we helped put together and him saying, and everybody nodding their heads and getting it at different degrees, we are vulnerable.
Right.
And this is an institution that it actually, you would never know, you would never think they think that way. But some recent occurrences at different institutions and enrollment losses, and there are things happening out there at the schools that are finding a way to raise this level of urgency. I think it's coming, and although there might be some skepticism from people who've been in higher ed for 30 years, they say, you know what, this is just rehashing the whole thing, the same thing over and over again. I think the difference now is that the pace of change is increasing, and there is greater uncertainty where this is going, especially with the introduction of all these different ways of where higher ed is sort of under attack between the MOOCs and between for-profit institutions looking how to bring industry practices. It is coming together in an exciting, but for some, an overwhelming way, and we're fortunate enough to be in these conversations.
I think this is going to be a fascinating time to be hosting these kinds of conversations, and particularly this idea of the new skills that are required to adapt, that are different than the skills that were required 30 years ago, particularly in the context of pace of change. And so this is as always a wonderful presentation, but I think it just keeps getting better. Tell me a little bit about this panel discussion you're hosting on Wednesday, the 9th, the last day.
That's right. That's the other piece. So this is really interesting. So Jeff Selingo, who wrote a wonderful book that really speaks to institution. He's the editor at the Chronicle of Higher Education. He wrote a book called College Unbound: The Future of Higher Education and What It Means for Students. It reads on many different levels for a parent, for anybody who's interested in higher education and understand the dynamics that are going on. It really paints a very clear picture of the challenges that we're front and center with. So what's happening is EACUBO has invited him to come and speak, and then right after he speaks, I'll be facilitating Jeff, and then, this is going to sound like a joke, a provost, a president, and walk into a bar. So my understanding is it's a provost, it's a president of a community college, and it's a CFO, I believe, and Jeff. And we're going to have a discussion about some of these challenges he's speaking to, and at their level, what are they doing about it? How are they attacking it at their institutions? So I think the really exciting thing about this is that it's not a panel of CFOs, right? It's not a panel of provosts.
Well, and let me just jump in here, because as much as I really do appreciate your joke about these people in a bar, I do have those names and titles. Is that something we should be sharing? It sounds like you might not have those in front of you.
Sure. No, I don't have it in front of me. Please.
Okay. Well, we've got, in addition to Jeff Selingo, editor-at-large, Chronicle of Higher Ed, we have Peter Stearns, provost and EVP for George Mason University. We have Will Reed, chair of the board for the Davis Foundation, and Sandra Kurtinitis, president of the Community College of Baltimore County. And
so that's wonderful. The correction you just made was we have a trustee, and I'll tell you that having that perspective at the table is also going to be very interesting for this group of CFOs in the audience listening to this diverse perspective.
The diversity on this panel, I think, just not to underscore this inappropriately, I think having a chair, a private, and a community college that is addressing a massive audience or audience of students in the community is, I think that's such a robust set of experience on stage. So it should be a great conversation.
I know.
And the last time you handled these at much prodding, you were taking questions via Twitter for your panel discussion. I assume you're going to be doing the same thing?
Actually, no. You know what? That's a great point. No, it was actually the last presentation I gave. We did the Twitter thing. But yeah, we will. Part of it will be a function of how big an audience we have. But if we have
it'll be giant,
200 people in the room,
yeah.
It'll be giant. These thousands.
Yes,
thousands. We're gonna pack a room that can hold 50 with 400 people.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. But the answer to your question is, I will like to continue that practice because I think there's great value in doing it. It's going to be a function of how this plays out. You're not going to be flexible, Pete. You know me.
Oh, do I ever?
You're constantly pushing me to read this new technology and given how old I am.
You're very welcome, Grandpa.
My kids remind me of it every day. And by the way, one of my kids is in college now.
I know. That's got to add a few grays, huh?
Well, one of them, it's more. It's fascinating to be on the other side of this.
Yes.
To be the parent of one of these kids going through the experience. It's a whole other ballgame. It's definitely a wake up call.
That may be something for a whole separate episode. That's a fantastic question. So anyhow, related to folks being in touch with you to submit their own questions to the panel, we absolutely want to continue that practice. We're just not quite sure how it's going to play out at time of recording. So just hang out at teibelinc.com/EACUBO 2013, and you will find all the instructions you need for how to get in touch with.
Is there a Twitter? Can you give them the Twitter?
Your Twitter. The main Twitter account is just at Howard Teibel. And that is it's very, very simple. And
I will definitely take Twitter questions.
Excellent. And so stay in touch there and keep up with us on and prepare for a great closing panel discussion. After that, it looks like there are going to be 3 synchronous drill down sessions after the panel discussion, which hopefully will give folks a chance to really put into context and practical application.
And they're repeating this practice from last year that was very successful.
Yeah, I can tell they've learned some great lessons about making this a really actionable event. It's very exciting. So
exactly.
Excellent. Anything else you would like to share as we prepare for the big day?
No, it just continues to impress me the way I'm seeing more and more CFOs coming into this conversation with a genuine interest to not just sort of focus on sort of the mechanics of being a CFO and the divisions, what they're supposed to do, but really finding a way in to make some of this change happen or be really more responsive to the needs of these changes. And it more than anything, Pete, I think it opens more questions than answers. And what I'm seeing is more and more leaders are saying, all right, we're willing to be part of that conversation. And so it's a very exciting time.
It's a great reflection. It's something you and I have certainly talked about, this idea of personal courage leading to professional and educational success. So
absolutely,
it's great to see.
You show me all the time. You're my role model on the personal courage side.
Amen to you, sir. This has been a great conversation. As always, look forward to seeing all of you. Please come up, say hi to Howard. Tell him how much you love the podcast. We sure appreciate you listening. You can catch us at TeibelInc.com or in the iTunes store. Just search for us. We're on Stitcher Smart Radio. You should absolutely check us out there if you're a Stitcher user. Again, thanks for your participation and lending us your ears for these few minutes. We will catch you next week on Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel Inc.